Good evening and warm welcome to this 158th leadership conversation. Friends, we have Hemant Soreng, my dear friend who has joined today to tell us the story of Mount Everest climbing that he did very recently. We are actually waiting with a lot of enthusiasm to understand and get as close as possible to this most difficult, incredible journey that Hemant has undertaken very recently. We are joined by Hemant already here. Please welcome Hemant. Hemant, good evening, and once again, welcome to this leadership conversation. Thank you so much that you have agreed to speak on our platform, and it's going to be a great experience. I'm very sure. I want to tell you that we are joined by some very enthusiastic people around the screen this evening, from Hyderabad to Bengaluru to Delhi to UK, people who have interest in trekking, people who have gone to base camp. All of them have joined. Dr. Rajesh from UK, from Manchester has joined. He's planning to understand how the journey has been, and many other enthusiasts who are on the screen. Many more will join on Facebook Live. Welcome to all of them. I will do a brief intro and then hand it over back to you for your opening presentation. Let me share my screen. These are WiseViews leadership conversations, and this is session number 158. For the last 158 Fridays, we have been trying to talk to leaders and distill some learnings so that we can go back and apply in our own domains. 158th is touching the Mount Everest with Hemant helming the conversation. So this introduction and his talk, actually the schedule that we put for every week is for about 20 minutes. But here it is as good as 40-45 minutes that Hemant will talk about. Otherwise, the story will not have the depth and understanding various stops and starts and the difficulties and the peaks that one reaches. I think that story consumes so much time. I will quickly do a brief introduction of Hemant and then go back to listening to him. Mr. Hemant Soreng is a serial entrepreneur, digital evangelist, author, blogger, scuba diver, documentary filmmaker, high altitude mountaineer, Ironman triathlete, and marathoner. He is also a guest faculty in various business schools, a speaker in various forums, and regularly advises young entrepreneurs in the internet space. Presently, he runs Rustik Travel, that is the logo on his t-shirt. He is wearing it on his chest. He's a sustainable experiential travel company that he runs, that he has founded a few years ago. He's an early entrepreneur. In 2000, he co-founded E-Delta C Communications, one of the first digital marketing agencies in India, which was bought out by Ogilvy, a top advertising agency worldwide, after 2 years of profitable operations. I think you ran this along with Sandeep. He then moved on to work for various companies in leadership positions for several years, a period he calls sabbatical, until he plunged into entrepreneurship again. He's an avid blogger and writer. He has published many books and continues writing about adventure, travel, digital marketing, entrepreneurship, and related topics. He has more than 22 years of work experience, primarily in the digital media, marketing, and technology domain, with strong exposure in brand building, community management, marketing communications, e-commerce, web solutions, analytics, and CRM. This experience spans across different types of organizations in the digital space in leadership positions, including marketing organizations like Lenovo, multinational advertising and digital agencies like HTA, Ogilvy, and Starcom, and the internet startups like Bridgeover, TW, DBS Internet Services, and E-Delta C Communications. He is an active member of the digital marketing fraternity in India. He has visited our ICFAI Business School also earlier in Bengaluru. He is a regular speaker and contributor in various forums. He is a guest faculty at various business schools, teaching different aspects of digital marketing. He has been an early entrepreneur in the digital marketing domain. As I mentioned, he was the CEO and co-founder of E-Delta C Communications. He was introduced to the internet as early as 1995. In his business school, he went on to write a research paper on internet marketing in India as part of his dissertation. Since then, he decided to convert this passion to his profession. He loves to write, many things that I can talk about him. He went to school in Delhi at Sardar Patel Vidyalaya. He's an engineering graduate from DCE, Electronics and Communications, and MBA from the prestigious IIM Bangalore. He's my co-alumnus. His interests include traveling, trekking, mountaineering, running, cycling, swimming, and music. There's nothing that he left. We have to also add digital marketing to his repertoire. Welcome, Hemant, once again. I will now take a moment to introduce Dr. Prasad. Professor Dr. R. Prasad is the Senior Director in Academic Wing of ICFAI Group. He brings with himself 3 decades of rich experience He holds BTech in IIT Bombay. Yeah, the similar to you, Electronics and Communication, and PGDM from the prestigious IIM Kolkata. Welcome, Professor Prasad. Thank you so much for putting this together. I will now stop sharing the screen, and all ears to you, Hemant. Thank you once again. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sudhakar, for that big introduction. It was pretty flattering. And thank you, Dr. Prasad. And thank you all to join this evening to listen to me. I hope I will, be able to do a good job. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so last month, exactly on 22nd May, I summited Mount Everest, which everyone knows is the highest mountain in the world. And when Sudhakar reached out to me to talk to all of you what my learnings were, what my experience was, and especially for a leader, it set me thinking. Let me put a disclaimer here. In all humility, I don't consider myself as a leader. A leader could be anyone. It could be a CEO, a manager. It could be someone at the junior most level. It's about the skills they gain. Even at the junior most level or part member of a team could show leadership skills in various situations. What happened during Mount Everest is the journey I'm going to share with you. And there were many circumstances or situations I underwent where I thought there were people who went up, or sometimes included me, which showed that leadership skills. And this journey, which I'm going to talk to you about, is not in the last 2 months, but from the beginning, how I started thinking about mountains and mountaineering. So I'll just quickly start onto it. I think one should be passionate. Passion needs to come first. I remember as a 10-year-old, we as a family went out on vacation, summer holidays. And I clearly remember till this day, we had gone to Sikkim. And that was the first time I saw Kanchenjunga, the third highest mountain in the world. And this I'm talking about in the early 80s, right? When Sikkim was very pristine, no tourists, and it was just out there. I think even out of 30, 40 years, if I still have that memory, how beautiful it would be. So I think from there on, I really became passionate about mountains. And trekking and climbing came much later, after I had finished my studies, started working. And that's when I started to look passion outside work. Of course, I was digital marketer and I was very passionate about that. But there were other facets of my life which I was yet to explore. And trekking was one of them. So another aspect was, these are some old pictures of mine. I was a pretty avid sportsman. I think that gave me that discipline of fitness, of teamwork. And I actually captained my footballs in school teams, in school, in college, elsewhere. It gave me a sense of leadership also, and how to be a team player and go beyond that. So these were all early days, and it's a long journey. I've come a long way since then. So in 2005 was when I started trekking and climbing. And in 2011 is when I first went to Everest Base Camp. Now, there's a story about Everest Base Camp I want to tell you about. So this is 2011. In 2010, I had left my corporate job. As Sudhakar mentioned earlier in my introduction, that I had an entrepreneurial stint way back in 2000 as we started a digital marketing company. When I came back into the corporate world, I didn't quite fit in. So a few years later, after working various multinationals, I quit my job and decided that I'll do something. I'll do something in travel or do something in digital marketing. So this was during that finding me phase. I went to Everest Base Camp. Of course, it's a mountain, the highest mountain. I wanted to trek there. And it was very, I was overawed by the entire thing, because you don't know how difficult it would be just going to the base camp. It is difficult. There is altitude, there is cold, which I have never been exposed to. So there were three of us. We trekked all the way to base camp. And it was pretty okay. We felt some altitude sickness as we reached the base camp, but I was fine. And then I came back. And during that time, this was first week of April, I still remember, this is the time when all the climbers who are eventually summiting Everest, they go towards the base camp, they start walking. So we were walking with the climbers, we were walking with Sherpas who have summited Everest multiple times. So it was a typical, a very fanboy moment for me as I took pictures with everyone. It was really, really inspirational, seeing all those. And when on the way back, we stopped at a place called Namche Bazaar, beautiful village. It's a big town at the height of 3,500 meters. And at the tea house or the lodge where we were staying, we were sitting at the dining hall, chatting with my fellow trekkers. And then we saw some commotion there. There was a film crew, BBC film crew, and they were shooting someone. So I asked my guide who that person is. I asked him, is he going to the Everest Base Camp? Or he said, no, he's going to the summit. So I was like, okay, this is one guy, I need to meet him. So I met him. So his name was Shailendra Kumar Upadhyay, and he was 81 years old. So this is the photo I still have, from 2011. So Mr. Upadhyay actually was an Indian born in India, a freedom fighter who moved to Nepal eventually after India got independence. And in fact, he was the first foreign minister of the Democratic Nepal, the first government. And later on, after retiring from there, he represented Nepal in the UN. And after that complete retirement, he was just hiking and trekking, which he loved the most. And at 81, he was all set to climb Mount Everest. I was like inspired till I don't know what. And I met him, I took his autograph. I still have that autograph with me. Of course, this photo is with me. And I wish him all the best. And he would be the oldest man to climb Everest, if he were to do that. Then I came back to India and he was in my thoughts. So I started Googling him, where is he, started to track his process. And in that, I came to know that while coming back from Camp 1 during acclimatization, he passed away. It was pretty sad. And I remembered talking to a friend. I told him that, I told him the story and he said that, at least he died doing what he loved the most. I think that was such an inspirational statement, which is still there with me. So I think that is another trait I feel, you have to inspire others around you. I think one of the leadership traits. And it definitely inspired me. I consider him as one of the leaders in that context, who sort of pushed me to push myself or encourage myself to do more and go beyond what I've been doing. So that was many years ago. Another trait which I found and I've tried to do over the years is being multi-skilled. I think as a leader, I mean, you will say jack of all trades, master of none. I actually believe in that. It's fine. At least you know what others are doing. And in various situations, it could be a corporate setup. You have a team. At least you understand what different people are doing. So you have different skill sets. It not be at the specialist level. That's where people are there for. It could be at a intermediary level, which is just fine. And for climbing also, and coupled with my entrepreneurship, it makes huge sense. So as I told you, my journey started in the mountains some almost 20 years ago, and since then I have been, trekking. And this I'm doing out of passion, right? It's not that it's a job I have to go there. Now it's a job because with Rustik Travel, which I run, sustainable experiential travel company, I lead a lot of treks. So in these 20 years, I have 25 plus multi-day treks in the Himalayas across India, Nepal, Bhutan, other places done. So this is my biodata, so to say, of climbing and trekking, even before I thought of climbing Everest, which included 14 successful climbing expedition. It includes Everest, but so basically 11, 12 peaks before I went to Nepal in April this year. The second last two lines where I mentioned, I also led treks and climbing expeditions in 2016. I think it gives a different viewpoint when you're climbing out there. In a high mountain like Everest, or it's very dangerous. It could happen anywhere. Of course, we have a climbing guide or a climbing Sherpa with us, but you don't want to depend on him, 100%. If something goes wrong, it could be the weather, it could be an injury, it could be oxygen running, or it could be anything. You should be able to take care of yourself. And if anything happens to him, you should be able to help him also. So I, before even starting, even thinking of such a project like Everest, I wanted to be very sure that, I should be able to take care of myself in case any untoward incident happens. So that's where different kind of skills and experience matters. I also did wilderness first responder course. Now this is basically this was by National Outdoor Leadership School, one of the leading outdoor leadership schools in the world, based in the US. Now it teaches you what to do in case something happens in the outdoors. It could be somebody has a broken arm, somebody has a snake bite, somebody has a heart cardiac arrest, and you are to do CPR. It could be altitude sickness or hypothermia. What should you do before the actual help comes or evacuation happens? So these are life skills which I underwent training, and it could be used in urban settings as well. So I think this gives a lot of confidence, and in situations, as I said, uh, where you could be not exactly a decision maker, but you could help. And that's where, your leadership comes to fore. You could be the most junior most person. So I think having skills and multi skills and experience does, help a lot to come out when situation demands. These are some of the things which Sudhakar also mentioned. That's my book and some of the climbing expeditions. I think another thing is process driven. It's not a one day affair climbing Everest. Okay, here's the summit. Let's go up and come down from Camp 4. No, it takes years. Actually, it took me years actually to even decide. And there's a process one has to follow to get there. It's a it's a in the could be the training, physical training, mental strength, and so on. How to get used to different gear. So last year was the time when I actually decided, okay, I think I should go for Everest. So before that, I had told you what my experience in climbing was. So I felt a bit confident, but I gave myself 1 year to do intensive training, which is very much required for Everest. So, which means that from a physical point of view, basically you're doing climbing condition, basically taking 20 kgs of or more of backpack and going up the hill and coming down for 1, 2, 3 hours, every week. Cardio, running 10K, 21K regularly, strength training, for going to the gym, flexibility like yoga, and doing all this every week for 6 days a week without fail. It doesn't matter if it's raining, it's very hot, you have some meeting, you have to do it. If you don't find it in the morning, do it in the evening. You have to follow this process. Some days, I'll tell you, last year, some days, oh, I don't want to get up and go this, but I force myself to do this. You have to set up a process. And when I was summiting, I remember that training really helped me. Of course, there's a financial aspect to it. For Everest, it cost quite a bit. It costs around 40 to 50 lakhs at least. So getting that organized, a bit of crowdfunding, bit of debt, bit of savings, it is a process you need to follow. When I thought of this, I didn't have it in my pocket. Over 1 year, I tried to get this from various sources. Equipment and gear, again, if you have started just mountaineering, you should give it time. You should get used to all the equipment and gear, get familiarized with it. You shouldn't be using new stuff out on the mountain because you just shouldn't. Then of course there was insurance and there's a will. It's all part of the process. You should be mentally prepared. What happens if you don't come back? There's nothing right or wrong here. You don't have to. It's not morbid thought. It's a practical thought. It's all part of the process. So this is just a basic, I mean, one fraction of the packing list what I carried. Each one of them costs a bomb. Like the shoe here, the big shoe on the middle, it costs around 1.25 lakhs. The shoe next to it just 20,000 cheaper. That's so. Plus, there are sleeping bags at minus 40 degrees temperature grading, minus 30-degree temperature grading. So there's ascenders, which you use generally, which you call Juma, to go up. There's down suits and so on. And they have to be best. It shouldn't happen that something goes wrong on the mountain, something breaks, right? So that's why, as I mentioned, you have to test it before, which is all part of the process. This was how it looked when I went, around 55, 60 kgs of luggage from Bangalore. So Everest expedition is a 2-month process. Now, people asked me, when I reached base camp, people were messaging me that, okay, reach base camp. Okay, when are you climbing? Why don't you finish it off and come back? But, these are the various phases. One is reaching Kathmandu, spending time there, getting your gear, packing list together. If you missed out anything, buying those things. You trek to the base camp, which takes 8 days. And then you do rotations, right? Basically, you go to higher camp, you come down, again go to much higher camp and come down. And you keep on doing that to get acclimatized to high altitude, basically climbing high and sleeping low. At the base camp, of course, there's a bit of training which also happens. And then you rest and just wait at Everest base camp for the weather window to open. Now, just to give you a perspective, which I'll tell you in the next slide, actually. And then you summit, push, and return, which is anyways from 6 to 8 days. Okay, this is something, as I said, so I wasn't a leader in strictest sense in Everest. We had an expedition leader. I had a climbing guide. We were together, but I was following him most of the time. But I think as a person, you should be a people person, because help comes from all quarters, and you can help to different people in different situations. So we had a wonderful group from all across the world. For example, on this yellow t-shirt on the left, he's Alex from France. Next to him, Casper from Estonia. There's Daniel from England. On my right, there's Abdul Samad from Afghanistan. He's just 23 years old. Next to him, there's Rune, who's asthmatic. Next to him, his wife, Cicely, who's type 1 diabetic. And next to him, face you see, is Hugo from Bolivia, who before this has climbed all the 8,000 meter peaks in Pakistan, including K2, without oxygen. And here on my left is Pablo from Argentina. He's only 63 years young, and he eventually submitted. So, and this is the team going towards Everest Base Camp. On the right, extreme right, in green jacket, is a climber called Tenzing, and he was a DJ. He eventually made it up, and he was the first DJ to go climb Everest. Right. Once we reached Everest, it's luxury out there. The best chefs are in town are there, be it cookies, be it cakes, and whatnot. There's a bakery chef. There's chefs for the Chinese team cooking Chinese preparation, international cuisine. And there were 6 Indians in our group, and we used to get a regular dose of aloo paratha, biryanis, and dal bhat and all that. So it was quite an experience, in the base camp. We did a bit of training, around 2 days of training, basically getting used to the obstacles we'll meet along the way, like climbing a high wall or crossing crevices using ladders. But before actually setting foot on the mountain, one is required to do puja. So a puja happens at each camp, each expedition company's camp. And the puja is to pray to Sagar Mata, Mother Goddess, to seek her permission to set foot on her for a safe passage to summit and return. And there's a party which happens after that, so which I can tell you offline. Okay. After the puja, the work starts. Okay. The work is this. if you closely look at this it's this image, right at the bottom, number one is the base camp, which is at 5,364 meters. And from here, you go to camp one, which is at 6,100 meters. Now, between base camp and camp one is a treacherous place called Khumbu Icefall. As you can read it, it's a minefield of crevices and seracs. And these basically seracs are those huge ice boulders that can fall anytime, right? And these weigh thousands and thousands of tons. So if you manage to pass by it and it falls, well, there's no redemption from there. And crevices are bottomless pits, right? They're gaps. Now, this Khumbu icefall is like ice fall. It's not a waterfall. It's like a waterfall, but ice, right? So base camp is actually on Khumbu Glacier, and icefall, and which is moving, and icefall is also moving, but it moves faster, which means that, let's say on day one, you go on Khumbu icefall and you try to come back next day, the route would have changed. Okay, so that's Khumbu icefall. A lot of people dread that. Now, camp one to camp two is a gradual climb, very gradual, flat space, but it's one of the hottest zones in Everest. It's called Western Coombe, COOM or CWM, which means valley in Welsh. The temperatures could go as high as 40 degrees centigrade on this route. I was actually dehydrated the second time when I went for the summit push. After camp two, you go to camp three. Just below camp three, you actually start oxygen around 7,000 meters. Camp three is at 7,200 meters. And 7,000 meter onwards, the slope becomes very steep and you're always on the rope, all the way to the summit and back till that point. It's really, really steep. There's no flat place to just sit and, relax. Even the camps which are set, they are actually in an incline way, but Sherpas sort of make it flat and to put tents on. That's how camp three was. From camp three to camp four, there's a lot of obstacles, rocky phases like Yellow Band, Geneva Spur, very difficult to climb on them. Which are bottlenecks, and that's where the traffic happens. Even this time, huge traffic happened during that time. And camp four is at 7,950 meters, which is almost the death zone, 8,000 meters and above, right? This is it's called South Col. Col is actually a place between two mountains, and it's less windy. It's not a pass. It's sort of different from a pass. And then from camp four, you go all the way to summit and come back. So this is how this is. I have a video to show actually, but maybe I will show it to you after this presentation, which will give you an idea how everything looks like. I think resilience is another thing which I felt is a takeaway. Now, during one of my rotations, the second rotation, the last rotation, when I was coming down from Khumbu Icefall, I had gone all the way to camp three, just below camp three, and coming down from Khumbu Icefall. As I said, Khumbu Icefall is very, treacherous, and there's no clear path. So at one point while coming down, I injured my knee. I had a awkward, not a fall, but I put my foot awkwardly, the left foot, and I injured my knee. And I realized that it was a ligament tear. It took me 5 hours from there. I was still right in the middle of Khumbu Icefall to go very slowly without injuring it further, all the way to the base camp. I met the doctor there. He said he's sorry, the ligament tear, and you have to basically abandon your Everest expedition. And somehow I had also come to that. So next day I took a helicopter, went to Kathmandu, and they did X-ray. They put a brace. This was me. This is actually 1st of May. And next day, the actual orthopedic surgeon came and he examined the reports, said X-ray, you're fine. On MRI, he said, you have got a ligament strain. It's not a tear. So that gave me hope. But I know I've had ligament injuries in the past, that ligament injuries take, not days, not weeks, months to heal. So I was extra careful. I was just weighing my options. So I was discharged the same day and I was resting in the hotel. And after 8 days in Kathmandu, I felt very strong and confident, though I knew it's there. slightly, but I could, walk up down the stairs, and I went back to the base camp and walked 2 days to the base camp, the backpack in that uneven terrain. I felt good. I felt confident. So this was my resting period in Kathmandu during that time. And after this, I went to base camp. I think the seventh learning, and this is especially for situations you will encounter while mountaineering, is this, or even anywhere in your personal life, in your professional life as well. But in mountains, you have to take those decisions to save your life or somebody else's life, right? So when I came back, we were waiting, and finally we were waiting for so much time. Most of the people also go down during the rest period because to recover and get access to oxygen. And when everybody came back, everybody's waiting for the weather window. Now, what is a weather window? Everest at that altitude of 8,900 meters or around 30,000 feet is at the level of jet stream, right? Jet stream, where the aeroplanes go on a cruise, which means that jet stream is actually around 200, 300 plus kilometers per hour of wind speed. So therefore, if you are climbing in that wind speed, you will just simply be blown away, right? And this happens throughout the year on Everest. However, historically also, in May, handful of days, this wind doesn't blow at that speed. It comes down to manageable of 15, 20, 30, 25, 30, in which one could go and climb and come back. But these are a handful of days. So our expedition team gets weather reports. Again, these are to be seen with a pinch of salt because anything could happen, but these are more reliable as it comes from the Nepalese government. So we were given dates. And there are few dates. 12, 13 May was one. There was 19 to 23rd was another one, and 26, 27 was the other windows, right? So we decided 12, 13, the very few people went. I went for the 19 to 23rd window, which is during this time, right? And we started. And since it was a large weather window, most of the climbers started, and the traffic started building up. Now, during this time, I took one decision that I will be slow than my usual self while going up, and especially while coming down. While I was feeling good about my injury, but I knew that, this could return or something else could come. That's one decision I took. Second decision I took was, while I had my climbing Sherpa, I will take one more Sherpa with me. Now, of course, my climbing main guide recommended that. Main reason was that he will carry oxygen cylinders so that my climbing Sherpa is generally free to walk with me, to change ropes, all those things. And since I'll be slow, we'll be out there more, we'll spend more time than usual. So in case oxygen runs out, we will have that extra oxygen. So I took these two decisions when I started from the base camp. My climbing Sherpa joined us only in Camp 4, but this was, sorry, not climbing Sherpa, the assistant Sherpa. But this is something we decided. And we could feel that, we reached this is end of the ice fall, and it took me an hour just to get over this. Camp 2 to Camp 3, you can see pictures like this. Again, very steep. And before reaching Camp 2, I was completely dehydrated. One day we took extra rest there. It helped. Now, after reaching Camp 3, see, this is how inclined this is, right? So again, the traffic is building up. So we decided that we will leave early in the night, around 2 a.m. to go to Camp 4. It will take 7-8 hours. And basically, there'll be no traffic during that time, traffic of climbers. And we will rest there in Camp 4 and then summit and come back. So that was our decision, what we thought. But that night it snowed, and it snowed heavily. We couldn't go. So next morning, well, the weather was still bad, though it had stopped snowing, but it was poor visibility, complete whiteout. We started off. And along with us, a lot of the other climbers also started. And a huge traffic buildup. So this is just a picture. There are videos out there floating. I have some videos, but I can show later. Huge traffic buildup happened during this time. It took us 11 hours, a bit more, to reach Camp 4 just because of that. And this traffic was not because of one-way traffic. There was one rope. People are going up, and people who climbed yesterday or day before yesterday, they're coming down. There are rescues happening on the same rope. So it was very crazy. Finally, we reached Camp 4, and this, you can see the summit up there is Mount Everest. So we could see this overwhelming, massive out there for us. Again, we took one more decision here. Since we reached late and there was a lot of traffic, we said we will not go the same night. We will sleep and go the next day so that we don't encounter the traffic. And luckily we didn't, because there were some accidents which happened on the summit because of the traffic during that day. So next day we started on 21st May in the evening and went all the way up. This is how it looks when it gets a bit dark. Beautiful it is. The Camp 4 is behind me, and the night grew darker. And we reached a place called Balcony, which is halfway through Camp 4 and the summit. And then you took a slight left and go to South Summit, which is like almost 75-degree gradient. Very steep. I mean, you can't figure out in the night, only in the morning you see how steep you have climbed. And after South Summit, you reach a narrow ridge, right? So this is, and towards the end is the summit. So it's around half an hour from here. This is called Hillary Step. So to give you an idea, I'll just play this video. This I took when I was there. Sorry. So at this very point, around this ridge, the morning before, because of the traffic, there were people going up, climbers coming down, a lot of traffic here. The ridge couldn't take that weight, and one big cornice of ice fell. And 6 climbers fell on the Tibet side when that happened. 4 of them were clipped to the rope, so they were rescued. The other 2, unfortunately, they were part of my group, people I knew, Daniel and his Sherpa, Pas and G Sherpa. They fell to the Tibet side. And of course, you can't survive that fall. So that was very unfortunate. And it was weighing in my mind. I was going through that ridge. And finally, after half an hour from here, half an hour, 45 minutes, I reached the summit. So a lot of people ask me, how did it feel to reach the summit? Again, my mind was blank. The only thing which came into my mind was, okay, quickly take photos and let's go down. Because reaching the summit was not the goal. Coming back safely was the final goal. So after this, we went back, we descended, which was and while descending, it started snowing. There was a big storm. So this is a video we took and it was very difficult to come. But again, there you decide and be focused at each and every step. It's like extreme concentration you have to walk. And we did that for 11 hours. It usually takes 6 hours to come down. It took us that long because of the weather. And we passed a lot of people who were struggling. There were 3 people we crossed by who we came to know. One we tried to help also. They couldn't make it. They died that day. And finally, we reached base camp. These are my Sherpas. One sitting next to me is Pemba Dorchi, and that's his younger brother, Angtashi. So yeah. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't go beyond the time limit.
Oh my God. Is it done, Hemant?
Yes, yes. I mean, I
Right.
could go on. If you have time,
No.
you can play that video, or it's your call.
I cannot believe that it was so difficult. I mean, no amount of sending messages and writing on Facebook and things like that would help us understand it as closely as you have explained just now. It is near death situation, man. It is near death, and you have seen a couple of them actually not making it. It is not about not making it to the top, but actually not surviving. And I think it calls for unbelievable energy levels in terms of all the traits that you have mentioned. I think there is much more to it than what a human can actually fathom. I think there are unexplainable traits that are required to go to the top there. That's the reason I said, oh my God, thank you so much for taking us through this very, very gripping story of summiting Mount Everest. And I cannot believe that we are talking to one who has actually touched the peak on the top of the world. Thank you so much, Hemant, for this amazing story. You have templated it with the leadership traits and skills and made it extremely so relevant and useful for everyone. Do you want the videos now, or when do you want the videos to be played?
Just that one video, it will give a view
Okay.
of exact route I took. If we have time,
Yes.
only if we
Yes, yes.
have time.
Srikanth, can you play the video?
So this is the video from all the way from base camp through Khumbu Ice Fall all the way to the top. So this is the Khumbu Ice Fall. You can see how treacherous this is. This is Camp 1 on ice and snow. And all this is the hot zone which I spoke about, Western Kumu.
as stunning as it can get. Even the picture itself is scary. The movie itself is scary. I think walking along those narrow ridges, especially when you're there, almost there near the peak, I think it can be really, really scary, as you have explained. Thank you, Hemant, once again. What we'll do now is we will take a few questions. Professor Prasad will come in for the first cluster of questions. Probably I'll request him to take a couple of questions, and then I'll come back for the second, in which the people who have raised hands, we will open mic for them and we will take their questions. It is better that they get an opportunity to interact with a Summiteer like Hemant. Okay, thank you. Over to Professor Prasad. Thank you very much. Please come in.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, Hemant, for taking us through a very mesmerizing journey. Everest has always fascinated me since my childhood. I've been reading a lot about it, but I think this is the first time I really got so close through whatever you have said and the videos that you have shown. So I'll get straight away to the first question. I think you did cover some part of how you decided on going to Mount Everest, but is there more to that than you discussed about how you finally decided that you'll go to Mount Everest? You have done so many things in your life.
1 second, Professor Prasad. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that we are joined by 7 of my team members who have gone to Everest Base Camp. Majority of them are doctors, one from UK, one from US, and rest from India have joined. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much. 7 of us are here. Thank you. Please continue.
Yeah, so this big decision of going to Mount Everest, how did you finally land up there? What are the key moments in your journey till then which helped you to take this decision?
I think it was a long journey. It took me years to even come to that decision to do that. Before that, I've been, as I mentioned, that I've been trekking and climbing, but Everest is Everest. I mean, everything you climb or trek is lower than that, right? So you don't know what to expect. So to answer your question, I think it's a question of mental. It's more about telling yourself mentally or convincing yourself. And as I have done in my life through, be it personally or professionally, I've taken risks. And I think over the years, I have sort of not become immune to them, but risk taking became more easier for me because I was doing that. And this is something I said, okay, hey, let's do this. If not now, then when, right? COVID could happen again next year. So, or something similar. So let's do it. So that's how I decided. And as I said, when I decided, I mean, I didn't have the money, I didn't have the exact, I mean, I had experience, but the fitness or whatever. I mean, I was fit, but you need really intensive preparation. So 1 year you have to at least do that. I knew that in my mind. So that's where I decided. That's where I came. It was not an easy decision to arrive at.
Thank you. I think there is a reflection of a very, very, huge aspiration. And some moments and some pathways by which you managed to do that. There's so much in that which can be captured perhaps in longer conversations, but here I'll pause it at that.
Sure.
You have faced a lot of internal battles on this very long journey, including the preparation. Which of that which you noticed, and how do you keep at it?
I think there's some specific moments I want to tell you about during my summit where a lot of internal battles happened for me. And so from camp 3 to camp 4, when we were going, I talked about huge traffic. I think there were 300 or more climbers that day because long window, okay, everybody went, right? And is one rope, you're going up and there are people coming down, right? And rescues are also happening on the same rope. And I saw one rescue happening where they're actually pulling down a body and you're crossing that. And then they saw 4 Sherpas pulling down that. And I saw that was my friend. Actually, a friend, as in my fellow climber who used to be with me in the same group. His name was Banshi Lal from Chhattisgarh, an Indian. He was completely, I mean, he was not dead at the time. He was actually unconscious and they were rescuing him. Eventually, he was taken to Kathmandu and there he passed away in the ICU many days later. But, seeing that, or even when I started summiting and that news came to me that our Daniel Peterson and Sherpa had, fallen off, from the ridge to the Tibet side. That weighed, and that was the time we were starting our ascent. Those weighed on me. And I mean, it's after once you reach that summit, it's not about physical. It's all about, mentally how strong you are, how you have to keep on going. Even, going one step at a time, just imagine going for 11, 20 more, 20 plus hours with a heavy oxygen cylinder on your back and other things. It's amazing. It just, you have to, these are internal battles. So, which I fought. And there's one more incident I'll talk about while coming down. As I said, there was a storm and many didn't make it. We came across a climber, a Nepali climber, who was struggling. So we were helping him put his mask and all that. I told my Sherpa, let's give him our oxygen cylinder. I was pleading with him. My Sherpa said no. I mean, of course, I understand that if we give it to him and we face that situation, it's difficult for us. That climber didn't make it. And we came to know next day when they were going up to get his body. So, these were battles which you face. And these are some memories I mean, not so great memories I also take away from that, which, in your moment of triumph and glory, one shouldn't forget, all this. So yeah, to answer your question, I think I answered more than just that. So yeah.
Thank you. I think you did capture some of those moments where you had the battles. Perhaps where more can be done, and perhaps it needs reflection, maybe documentation also, is how you kept at it, because there are so many processes which go on in the mind, and sometimes they are random, sometimes you've got the discipline to do it. So what exactly took place and what helps for somebody else so that the sort of training can be given? I think that's something on which again requires a longer discussion, but I'll pause it at that for the time being. Now I'll take it a little futuristic. You have done well multiple things which look very different, but how do you reflect on this in retrospect for your path ahead?
I so I really don't know. I don't have a set path ahead. To be frank with you, I just so I run Rustic Travel, and within that, it gives me a huge opportunity to do multiple things. I've always been when I spoke about multi skills, I think it came out of my interest in multiple things, and hence, it could be tech, right, or it could be marketing, it could be climbing, it could be swimming, it could be music. So I just want to pursue things I'm passionate about. I think that's where it will set me. So people ask me, okay, which mountain are you climbing next? So I haven't thought of that. It's not about climbing any other mountain or other thing. It's what well I'm passionate about. I'll just do and go ahead. It's a very vague answer, but I hope you'll try to understand.
I think what I can see is that you're also trying to help others break their barriers, and in the bargain, you're also seeing some of these things and how it can be. You've done it yourself in different situations, including Everest. And I think in your organization, you're trying to break that for many others in terms of how human beings can actually realize their potential and break some of those mindsets when they do a climb like this. Perhaps it will be helpful to them when they. So there's some sort of mission orientation there. I mean, it's vague, but I can see that there's a lot of help which goes on to individual humans who have the courage to look at this sort of a decision and at those extreme kind of boundaries. And how do you actually help them a very high level of not just skill, even the mindset part also. I mean, this is what I am able to get from the kind of things that you have been doing. Maybe again it takes time before it reaches that. We are at 7:33. I'll take a pause here. I'll give it back to Professor Rao for his questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is one offbeat kind of a session on our WiseViews leadership conversations. This is one WiseViews session where we have thought we'll deviate quite a bit, because to get this kind of depth into the story, you need to give a lot of time to the speaker as opposed to the 20 minutes that we usually do. I think we have got a good hang of what we are looking at, what kind of challenge that one has crossed, and what are the lessons that we have drawn from there. I have three questions in one, Hemant, for you, and then I'll open the mic for others. One is, at what point in time while climbing did you feel that you will turn back? What was you all 90% you thought that you will come back. 90% of the mindset at that point in time. At what point did you feel so? That's the first one. Second, do you have helicopters there when you want to come back after summiting? And the third question is, how many individuals have so far submitted? Is there a list? Explain that
Right.
also. Okay, three.
Okay. So I'll start with the first question. What time I thought I'll come back? So I think the only time I thought I wouldn't make it was when I was injured. And I was very clear that if I go to the summit, I mean, even if I don't make it to the summit, I have to come back. That was my goal. So even during the summit itself, I was very clear to my Sherpa that if something happens midway, weather changes, or let's say we are tired, exhausted, and we have to turn even 10 meters from the summit, we will do that. So I was very clear about that. But it did not happen. So to answer your question, to answer your second question, so the helicopter, no, you cannot from the summit get on a helicopter, you can't come back. You can ski down though. There are people who have done that. If the air is too thin, right? The helicopters can go all the way. There's a landing pad at Camp 2, 6,400 meters. That's where till the helicopters can go. Till Camp 3, they cannot land, but they can throw a line and they can pick up a injured climber all the way back to Kathmandu, the hospital. On the third question, how many people have climbed so far? So since 1953, when it was first submitted by Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, close to world over, and these are unique people, some may have done multiple times, around 6,600 people. In India, around 550.
515.
50.
550.
Yeah, approx those
Awesome.
numbers.
I met two people who have climbed Mount Everest. One is obvious, that is you. And the second one is Bachendri Pal.
Oh, wow.
That was
Yeah,
about
she's-
5-6 years back. I met her in Jamshedpur.
Wow.
That was a chance meeting at the Tata Sports Academy.
Okay, wow.
Wonderful.
She's quite
Thank you so much.
quite
We
a
will
legend.
now
Yeah.
we will now open the mic for our enthusiastic participants. Dr. Shiva, you can please raise your question.
Thank you, sir. Hemant, sir, thank you for a very gripping account. I've seen a lot of Everest movies and videos. There's a couple of things. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. One is slightly philosophical, but before that, they always talk about the two common routes that they normally use, right? One is called the North Col route, or correct me if I'm wrong.
Northeast
Northeast
route.
Ridge route, yeah. The other is the South Col you showed us. Now, they always talk about the first step, second step, and then the Hillary step. But whenever I look at those videos, I never understand. It never looks like a step. What exactly is the step? Could you show it to us visually, or if you cannot, well, you showed that video at some point, if you could pause and tell us that this is the step that they're talking about. It doesn't look like a step. It looks more like a huge cliff, actually.
So there's only one step there, which is the Hillary step. The other are camps. So Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4. Okay. The video which I showed you where that ridge, where that accident happened, I said, right?
Yes.
That's Hillary step, close to Hillary step, you can say.
Yeah, but doesn't look like a step, like more like a cliff.
So in the past, so I mean, that's close to Hillary step. Now, in the past, when Hillary and Norgay climbed, it used to be a 30-meter climb. Okay. The big boulder. Now, what has happened over the years, and I mean over the years, is over 8-9 years, that boulder has somewhat fallen off or disappeared. Now, some people say that it has flattened. Okay. Some people say that during 2015 earthquake, it sort of fell off. And there's another theory which says that Sherpas themselves broke it off and fell off. I tend to believe in the latter one to make it easier. So
when you're there, how do you know that this is the part which is called the balcony, or this is the part which we know as the Hillary step? How do you know when you're there?
Okay, I knew about this because since for 10-15 years I've been reading about. I knew this route by heart even before I set up. Even I started walking on it. I knew about Western Combe, I knew about all those places. There's a yellow band, all those. I knew about them. I didn't know how they would be. So, and we are going with the Sherpa, we know we are going to the balcony first, because that's where we'll rest. And places where we rest in that walk is, I totally remember. Okay, the very few moments you get to rest in that grueling walk. So you know where you're headed, and there's a south summit, and there's a ridge which comes, which is northeast ridge, and one part of it is Hillary Step. So you know that it comes.
Sudhakar sir, can I just ask the other question very quickly, if it is okay? The philosophical question that I had was, it looks and it always sounds like nothing, no amount of preparation can 100% guarantee that you will not get into trouble and die. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
So then, is there a point? I mean, actually, Sudhakar sir, when we was asking, he kind of maybe was asking the same question. Is there a point where you feel, okay, I can climb Mount Everest? Now I'll be sensible and not get killed. I have got the experience that I've got. I'll go back home. Do you ever get that? Do I have to climb to the summit, or if I get till Camp 4, beyond which is the death zone, I've said, okay, I've got the experience. Now I'm going back home to stay safe. Do you ever feel, anyone feels
so
like?
it's very personal. There are people who went back, and they were many went back because they couldn't, they were really sick, right? Unwell. And some people still push themselves, and some of them didn't make it, right? So, I mean, I knew how my body is reacting at each and every step, at each and every altitude. And I was just going, literally was going one step at a time. I was not even looking at the summit when we started from Camp 4. And that's how you have to do it. And if you feel at any point, I mean, as I said, different climbers react differently. This is how I do it. I was very much sure that if I feel, even at Camp 4, I was feeling unwell, I'll come down. But I didn't feel that. I was tired going up to summit. I was never exhausted. So had I felt exhausted somewhere, yes, I would have, see, I've been climbing and trekking for quite some time. So those things come to you, when to draw a line. You cannot fight nature.
No, right? I mean, this is when you're exhausted, but do you ever feel satisfied knowing that, see, like Boris Becker won Wimbledon 3 times in a row, and then he said, I don't need to play it anymore. I know I can win it if I want to. And he quit. Is that possible? Or do I have to get to the summit? This is my question. Do you ever feel satisfied saying that, okay, I can do it, I'm going to go back down?
See, I was there to climb the summit. So
you
won't be satisfied unless you climb it, right? Oh. And if you can't make it, I mean, then you decide.
Got it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva. That was a very good parlay of questions. Now, one step at a time, not even looking at the summit, but focusing on your steps and one single step that matters to take you forward. I think that's a very, very big lesson, whether it is Mount Everest or any other difficult thing that you are faced up against any adversity in life. Wonderful, Hemant, on that. We'll now request Gopa Verma to ask the next question.
Yeah. Hi, Hemant.
Hi, Gopa. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So, congratulations for being in the 550 list of the country. That's a big achievement, indeed. I have one simple question. I have read at many places with this, the ropes are fixed all the way up to the summit. From where it starts, meaning is that a gate? Meaning, if you are physically fit, you can just catch hold of the rope and go up, just like that. I know it is not that simple, but how does it work? Over.
So, ropes start from the base camp onwards through Khumbu Icefall all the way to the summit and come down. So, at many places you don't need it to use a Jumar to go up. They're used as safety. In case something happens, you're on the rope. So to answer your question, it's all the way from base camp to summit and back.
So is that as simple as that? You can just, it's not that simple as that, but how do you hold the rope all the time when you climb up?
So after Camp 3, I mean, just below Camp 3, as I said, 7,000 meters, it becomes you really hold it. At many points in Before that also you hold it, right? Especially at steeper places in Khumbu ice wall, you hold it. Many places you don't hold it, but you clip onto it. In case you fall into a crevice, a hidden crevice, right? You don't know. You're walking and shack, you went down. If you're not clipped onto the rope, then it's game over. So you generally clip on it always, even if you're walking on a flat surface.
All right. Thanks, Hemant. Over.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gopa. I'll request Mr. Arun Kaul to quickly raise his question.
That was an amazing presentation, Hemant. I really enjoyed it. My question is that I remember reading somewhere that some people have summited the Everest without oxygen. Is that possible?
Yes, even this time also many went that. Just a few made it. A few didn't make it. They died on the way. I mean, 2 of them were from my group, 2 Mongolians. But yes, to answer your question, I think overall, I think around 200 people or so, that's the number, have climbed world over. Out of 6,600, 200 have climbed without oxygen. But it's extremely dangerous. This time, at least 3 casualties have happened of people who tried to do without oxygen. And many gave up midway, which I thought was a sensible decision. They came back or took on oxygen cylinder.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Quickly to Richa Gupta.
Yeah, hi sir. I am a faculty at ICFAI Business School, and I have been recently developed this hobby of mine to trek and hike at different mountains. So this is one of my wishes to fulfill this Everest base camp. So I would like to know, do I have to wear oxygen or use oxygen all the time, oxygen mask, or is it only needed when the weather or the climate is not friendly to me?
Right. So that's something Sudhakar can also tell. He's a veteran base climber. But to answer your question, Richa, you don't need an oxygen cylinder to go to base camp and come back. But in case you are feeling unwell and you're getting altitude sickness, then you are administered oxygen cylinder. But the only way to get well is to come down, descend. That's the only way. Even you can't say, okay, I'm not feeling well, have oxygen cylinder and go up. You can't do that. It will not work. In fact, that's what happened to my friend Banshilal, who was with me in the group. He had HACE, high altitude cerebral edema, which he started feeling from camp 3 onwards. Even though he was on oxygen, he should have come down, but he went up and up, and he had a brain stroke. So I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Richa. And I request Dr. Anita Raman to put forth a question.
Good evening. Thank you, Hemant sir, for such an inspiring story. It was very gripping. I just just wanted to understand, when you are aligning with your body and mind, how do you coordinate, or how do you convince yourself to take such tough decisions when things are going against, and then you see that someone passed away and they couldn't make it? At that point of time, it becomes very challenging to train your mind and stay focused, right? So that's an emotional journey you're going through, and then physically you have a challenge, and then balancing and then still focusing. How do you convince yourself?
Right.
That's
a very good question, Anita, and very relevant, because I felt it all the time there, especially when I started seeing, and these are my mates who used to eat with me, and you really, bond together, especially in these situations, right? When you're together in the base camp and otherwise. When we started summiting from Camp 4, we heard the news that Daniel had, slipped along, fell off with his Sherpa. So there was Cicely and Rune were coming behind me, and they heard this news, and Cicely just couldn't take it. She's a very strong climber. She decided that she will not climb. She's not in that mental stage, right? So to answer your question, I mean, it's very, very much there that, this happens. It happened to me also. But I sort of persisted, and see this process, but that's why I said process, this I have set up a process for me when I climb and descend. I think of certain memories, which are happy memories to me, right? Those could be my childhood, these could be my friends, this could be with my family. When I was going up, I was thinking that only, because it gave me motivation to go and come back, and it tried to deviate away from such incidents which are happening around me. So to answer your question, I think those really helped me.
Okay. And how did you convince your family? That's one of the challenging things that, you could convince yourself, but convincing the family members that you're going to take an extreme step, and then, they supporting that without being emotional is another thing that maybe you wanted to highlight on. So that shows your convincing skills with reference to your family is so strong that you were able to do that.
So, well, I think they've given up on me long time back. So, so how much of convincing will not work? They know that if I decide to do something, I will go ahead and do it. The another thing is that you can't just decide that, okay, hey, I'm going, and then go. You have to educate them, right? Give them information. Okay, this is how it is, right? These are the risks, and if this happens, I will come back, or this will happen, right? I think that's the only way you can do. If you keep them in the dark, if they don't know anything about Everest or what it takes, right now it might be, oh, it's like this. But if you, like how I knew the route, you tell them about the route, you tell them about these things, right? So I'm not saying they will be 100% convinced, but at least somewhere. So it always helps.
Great. Great. Thank you very much, Hemant, for responding to all the questions. And what we'll now do is we'll try and descend in terms of closing the whole conversation. We have spent good time today to understand how the journey has been and what have been the lessons. I think to a large extent, you have mapped it extremely well. In terms of the future path, yeah, a lot of visionaries, a lot of entrepreneurs may not have a clear path ahead, but then those decisions are taken at the most opportune moments and then make it work. And it looks like a strategy was always there in place. But if you ask them before, they say that nothing is planned as of now. I think I've seen with many entrepreneurs, many daredevils like you saying these things. One very important takeaway for me is that I think with this kind of expedition which you have done, summiting Mount Everest, the motivational potential that you carry for others in various teams, like in any sporting team or a football team or a cricket team, advising corporates on pushing them across boundaries, pushing them to adversity, and then waking up the real strong person in them so that they come back and take strong decisions, they stay resilient. All that you have mentioned, I think will be a distinct possibility. A motivator, a life coach, an adversity coach, so to say, many things, many possibilities exist. But I think it depends on from which side of the mountain that we look at. We look at from the Tibet side, from the China side, or we look at from the Nepal side. Or we don't look at the mountain at all, but focus on our steps like the way you have done, one step at a time. I think it's individual choice and the perspective that comes into play and works for you. But there's an enormous potential to help others cross their various kinds of mental barriers and physical barriers. And you could serve as one of the leading light, beacon of hope for many individuals, especially youngsters. One question I have. Did you ever feel that you should have done this before this age? See, you and I are at 50, 51. Okay. So do you think you should have done this 20 years before? Did you ever get the thought?
20 years ago, I had no idea that I'll ever do it. Okay. I think it comes with experience, age, confidence.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, yes, I think maybe 5-6 years ago, I should have done it. I still think that.
Awesome. When my team of 19 members, we finished the Everest base camp, we thought that this is it. And we sought a helicopter to climb down. After reaching the Everest base camp, we requested for helicopter. and we thought it is really treacherous, and we should not advise people to actually do it. We can tell the heroic stories to them, but we'll really advise them in private that they don't go. It is very difficult. The kind of living conditions that we went through. Oxygen is a different entity altogether, but much before that, what exhausted us was probably a little bit of courage that we did not have, that mental determination that we did not have sufficiently. When faced with this kind of adversity, this kind of weather, this kind of minus 17 degrees centigrade, wind blowing at almost 30 miles per hour kind of even there at the base camp at some of the peaks when a helicopter came to pick us up, I think based on all that inputs, but that data, I kind of told already a couple of people that don't try this year. It's very difficult. But listening to your story and the kind of troubles, travails, and the kind of journey that you have made, even after having a ligament tear, you came down, built yourself up, and then went back and continued your journey. That is a very, very interesting takeaway, that there is hope, and I think we should never give up. And it is completely mental energy, mental strength that it brings. Two important things I will say now and close it. This is a book that we compiled. I don't know if you're seeing it right. Are the letters visible to you in the right language? Can you read it?
Yeah, you can read it.
Jam Vistare.
Ani Aram
Garum. That is what in Nepalese the Sherpas have told us, that keep moving slowly, later you can take rest. I think with that mantra, we have been actually pushing us into those kind of difficult terrains as we move. Those locations that you mentioned are very familiar to us. I think those names we'll never forget in our life. Right from Kathmandu up to Everest Base Camp, all the peaks that you see, we will never forget those stunning pictures, locales, and very, very difficult ones. When we were returning from the Everest Base Camp, we also looked at this one. At 4:59 p.m. on that day, we clicked this one. And this was a picture that we brought home to tell the story that we really went there. Okay. And of course, several of my team members who joined, for them, I'm showing this picture. Guys, this is what it is. But what I am alluding to and what I am arriving at, Hemant, is that you should actually write a book on this. And we will publish it. ICFAI volunteers to publish your book. Your tales and your story of summiting Mount Everest has to be written. Leadership lessons have to be told, and that has to be a separate, dedicated book. Any effort required, any support required, we are there for you. And this is my first point. Second point is that, friends, this I have known Hemant for more than 25 years now. You have seen that he's an engineering student, and then went to IIM Bangalore, and then worked in various organizations. He's set up his own, and he has climbed various peaks, trekker, footballer, various sports that he played, and finally Mount Everest. In all these things, what we have seen is that he was actually not stopping at one, but keeping that one big passion, one big goal in his mind all the time, and working for it for almost 20 years, or for almost 15 years. After having inspired by that 81-year-old gentleman, he has stayed put with that passion and worked on it, because he has been taking many people to climb various mountains. And finally, I think at one decisive point, he took that decision to summit himself. That's a wonderful story, and those wonderful stories have four very important things. Bedrock determination, grit or determination, whatever be the language that you call. Sky high passion, as you have exemplified. Mountainous courage, mountains of courage it takes actually to do that. No amount of explanation, no amount of demonstration is sufficient. Actually, you have to make it, and then see that you have the mountains of courage in you. Discover that. And of course, years of preparation. For Everest Base Camp, we prepared for 1 year. All my team members would acknowledge. I'm sure you prepared for many, many years. And there is a lot of method in that madness, that passion that you have driven yourself with for so many days. And one last thing for the road is that at IIM Bangalore, Hemant was in the C block top, and I was in the C block, hostel block. C, it's called C. There are block A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Now there are many. and I was in the sea base. 25 years then, from there, I think I reached Everest Base Camp, and Hemant metaphorically has reached Everest top, and literally also in reality also he has reached Everest top. Kudos to you, my friend. Thank you so much for this gripping session. We have learned a lot. Thank you so much. I'll come back to you to request you to go to ICFAI Business School, Hyderabad in person and encourage those hundreds and thousands of young managers who are waiting to hear from someone like you, touch you, feel you, and tell you their own versions of what it can be. So I'll request you to make some time to go to Hyderabad as well. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you.
On behalf of everyone at ICFAI, we thank Hemant Soreng for this wonderful journey. We will come back and learn from yet another advisor and mentor who has dealt with social impact sector and what kind of role it has played in developing India. We will look at that story next Friday on July 19th at 6:30 p.m. Till then, go to Rustik Travel Company website and understand the various details of how many people have successfully lived their passion, liberated their fears, and liberated themselves thereby doing so. And you will understand what all that real life can lead us to and what actually mountains of courage means. Have a great weekend. Good night. See you next week. Thank you all.